Joining us now, Republican Tom Cotton, chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Great to have you with us.
Thanks, Shannon, for having me on once
So
again.
let's start here. Why did GOP senators agree to this deal in the middle of the night, kind of foisted off to, Republicans over in the House to figure out what to do next with this? And what do you make of the president's call for getting rid of the filibuster in the wake of this? He says, and I quote, "It's time for it to end. Those weak and ineffective Republican senators that stand in the way should be exposed to the public. The Democrats are, all caps, crazy."
The president's right that the Democrats have become crazy on this issue because let's be clear, whatever procedural differences we have between the House and the Senate, the reason we're at this impasse is that Democrats are using long TSA lines to throw a temper tantrum about deportations of violent, criminal, illegal aliens and funding of ICE and Border Patrol. We pre-funded ICE and Border Patrol last summer in our big budget bill because we saw just how radicalized Democrats had become. And what you've seen over the last week is Chuck Schumer continually move the goalpost. He makes a deal and then he retreats from that deal. The key sticking point here, or at least one of the key sticking points, is that Democrats insist that we write into law that ICE officers can't wear masks. The reason why ICE officers wear masks is because radical left-wing Democrats will dox them, and then their street militias will terrorize their wives and their kids at their houses. That's why the Democrats are inflicting long TSA lines on the American people.
So the House sends back a 60-day funding patch that nearly everybody thinks is completely dead on arrival in the Senate. Democrats say the president's playing games with those TSA employees, and we've been looking live at some of the worst airports this morning. One of them saying, quote, that the president is protecting his vile, violent, and lawless ICE and CBP policies. Where is the off-ramp? I don't hear one from either side.
So first off, Shannon, what the president has tried to do from the beginning is to protect the country from the wave of illegal immigration that Joe Biden invited into America that has brought depraved, savage gang members and drug traffickers into our country. Now, the president on Friday made the decision that he's going to fund TSA using monies that had been appropriated for other purposes, but for which Congress gave him discretion to use. So hopefully TSA officers will be paid on Monday, and I regret the pain that's been inflicted on them and their families by Chuck Schumer and Senate Democrats, and that the American flying public will also be able to get back to normal operations at the airport because President Trump made this decision. That gives us about 60 days in the meantime to do what the Senate Republicans had planned to do at the end of last week, which is pass a new budget bill that will fund ICE and CBP for probably 5 or 10 years, because we don't think the Democrats will ever fund them again because they're so committed to defunding the police. We may do that with TSA as well, now that we've seen the Democrats are willing to use TSA as a weapon against the American people to try to open our borders again. At that point, I don't know what Chuck Schumer is going to object to anymore. Is he going to object to funding the Coast Guard or Secret Service or the other parts of Homeland Security? Now, if Chuck Schumer and the Democrats would agree to pass this short-term funding bill that the House sent us yesterday,
which we know they won't,
that would be fine. We would come back promptly to pass that bill. In past times, when you have dispute about a certain agency or certain policy, it's been custom for both parties, when they're in charge, to pass a short-term funding bill. But the Democrats have become so radicalized on immigration that they're willing to inflict mass pain on TSA agents and the American flying public, and for that matter, to insist that ICE officers are subject to doxing so their families will be terrorized at their homes. So Republicans will never agree to that.
Does this turn into a reconciliation fight then in order to get past the 60-vote threshold?
That's the path we're going down right now, Shannon. Yes.
Do you think you have the votes there? Because there are skeptics who think there aren't even GOP votes to hold that together.
I anticipate we'll have the votes in both the Senate and the House to do very simple, straightforward things like funding ICE, funding Border Patrol, perhaps passing a supplemental bill for the military operations in the Middle East right now.
Okay, let's talk about the Middle East, by the way, because this is the headline from Washington Post last night. The Pentagon prepares for weeks of ground operations in Iran. A lot of that conversation is around possibly taking Karg Island, others in the Strait of Hormuz. One veteran and military analyst said this to the Wall Street Journal: that will become a chance to kill Americans who are aggregated and concentrated. He says they'd be sitting ducks. Now, you're a veteran. You've worn the uniform. What are your concerns about more troops heading to the region and possibly ground operations?
Well, my concern is that Iran is a revolutionary regime that's been killing Americans by the thousands for 47 years. America's finally put her foot down. And the objectives here are clear, despite the lies from the media and the Democratic Party. They're what President Trump said on the very first day of this campaign. We're going to destroy their missiles, their missile launchers, their drones, sink their Navy, destroy their Air Force. We're going to, again, set back their nuclear program. Every briefing I get, and I get briefed or have a phone call or have a meeting with administration officials almost every single day, says that our military operation is on time or ahead of schedule for every single line of effort.
What do you make, though, of Republicans who are coming out of some briefings that they're getting, like Congresswoman Nancy Mace, the chair of House Armed Services, Mike Rogers, coming out saying, we're concerned about what we're seeing. We're not getting a full explanation of what's going on or what the end game is. I mean, those are Republicans saying that publicly.
Well, first, the end game has been clear from the very beginning. This revolutionary regime is going to be defanged and neutered. It will no longer be able to hold the civilized world at risk. It will no longer be able to threaten American troops and our friends in Israel and the Arab nations in the region. It won't be able to shoot missiles that can reach as far as Europe and our base in the Indian Ocean, or for that matter, very soon, within probably a matter of months, have a missile that could even hit the United States. In terms of the briefings and updates, I can only say that I, as a senator and chairman of the Intelligence Committee, get new information almost every single day, whether it's part of a briefing or a hearing on the Intelligence Committee or the Armed Services Committee, and phone calls with the president or senior cabinet officials or in meetings with them. So I think they're doing a very, very good job of keeping Congress informed. They obviously can't share everything. They can't share operational details. Those things actually tend to be kind of sensitive, but also tend to leak from Congress if 535 members hear them all.
The goals that you mentioned there quickly, because we have to go, do we get there in the next 2 to 3 weeks? It's pretty ambitious.
I've said from the beginning I expect this campaign to last weeks, not months, and I think that's still a good estimate, but we have to see it to the end. We cannot stop early and allow Iran to have the military capability to continue to terrorize the United States and the rest of the civilized world.
Okay. Senator Cotton, good to see you.
Thank
you very much.